All right. Hello and welcome, everybody. So, if I can get a quick thumbs up in the chat or raise of the hand, everybody can see and hear me okay. I've been having a couple technical difficulties today. Perfect. All good. Awesome. All right. Well, welcome in to developing seamless training programs using the latest Matrix product update. So some of you will already know me by now. My name is Vanessa Douthard. I'm an EdTech specialist here in the North American region. This is going to be, I think, our third product update for 2022, and it's going to cover most of what happened in Q4. Well, all of what happened in Q4 and some of what happened in Q3, because since our last product update, we weren't able to cover everything, but it should be a lot of really good information. Today, our agenda is going to be pretty simple. We're going to go over the overview of the latest Matrix features. That's going to include some conversation about what's been happening with the dashboard and the dashboard widgets, some new admin stuff, courses and assignments, and then a really fun and interesting new app edition. So if you do have any questions, we will have a Q&A at the end, but feel free to type into the Q&A box on Zoom or in the chat, and our other panelists will be able to get to the, and if not, then I'll be able to get to them towards the end. All right, so I'm going to head over to one of our demo instances. This is where we're going to start on the home dashboard. So there are a couple of updates that have been made here, namely, in this center panel where we have our dashboard, where if we're admins, we also have our admin panel where we can see logistics and analytics associated with our site. We have a new tab here that is for agenda. And the way that you would enable it is going to admin, heading over to portal, and then coming to user view and scrolling down to home top tabs. So I know a lot of people have the news already integrated onto their dashboard. So you can just click and see the news, but this agenda one is new. So we're going to go ahead and enable that. And when we do, we'll see it in two areas. So coming to our main menu, we'll see it when we hover over the home. So here in agenda, we can navigate to it from there, or from the dashboard. Now that we've enabled it, it's going to be right here next to admin. So this new area is only going to show for users who are teaching or are enrolled in at least one instructor-led or blended course. So it's not going to be available for self-paced course, just because everything kind of happens on its own in those types of courses. But for instructor-led or blended, this is going to populate with information. This is what it looks like. So mine's not that built out, but we do have some stuff here. So for the week that's happening here, and we can scroll through the different weeks to see what's happening in the future. What we have here is two different things. So we have an event that's represented yesterday, November 7th, and then today an assignment that's represented, or a couple of assignments actually. And so what we can see for the event is the start time of that event. If this is the beginning of a class, and what users will be able to do is from here, they'll be able to click this box and go straight to that course. From the assessments, we'll be able to see information about whether or not that thing has been submitted, which is always super important. And we can easily go to those assessments straight from that agenda view as well. So this isn't to necessarily, and it could, but it's not to necessarily replace the information that's already on the dashboard, because we do have courses and everything here for learners and teachers to see. But this is just to consolidate the information and to have it in one area where we can look and see everything that's going on and maybe navigate to a few things just to make sure that we're hitting all of the places that we need to. So that's the first update. The next update on the dashboard is going to be over in this right panel with the announcements widget. So before, when we had announcements, whether they were associated with a course or associated with a group, that announcement would come to this widget, which is not the new part, and a person would click this announcement and it would open up into a new tab inside of their browser. So the update here is that when a person gets an announcement on the system, it's actually going to open up in this beautiful pop-up window, which is much more convenient than having all of these tabs open. Because imagine if you have multiple courses that you're teaching or that you're taking, and all of those courses have 10 announcements. That's going to get really annoying to have to go through different browser pages. So we have that new update for the pop-up. And then also, so this is less associated with the dashboard and it's more associated with the main menu. I just kind of added it onto the dashboard because it seemed to fit. One of the upgrades that we have is to our resources library. So this kind of counts as a dashboard. It's a catalog, but it's the dashboard of the resources library page. So in the past, our resources area didn't look that great. It didn't work as robustly as this update is allowing it to. So what we have is each of the resources that you have within your site. Here I have 678, that's a lot, are by default shown in alphabetical order. And we have some different types of views that are supported. So I've seen a lot of people really like this tile view, but we also have a list view in case that works for you, and the same information is presented on both. So we have an icon that represents what type of file that this is. We have the creator, any tags, excuse me, any tags associated with this item, and then the date it was created. Going back to tile view, we have all of that same information still, but it's a little bit of a prettier presentation. We also have the search filter, which works as it did before. You can definitely come in here and search for an item by name. As you can see here, I would always search by type, which is another upgrade that's coming with this resources area, is that now we don't have to search in the name bar for the type. We actually have a very beautiful drop-down list of all the different types of resources that there could be. So if I'm only looking for PDFs, I can search PDFs and only get PDFs that show up. Same with videos or any of these other types of resources, which is really, really useful and really, really cool. All right, so I'm going to come back out to the dashboard. We're actually done talking about the dashboard / resources area. And I want to take you through some of the updates to the admin account type. So not necessarily how the admin account type works, but what you're able to do as an admin account type. We've had some additions, we've had some changes, which are all really good in my opinion. So the first one is actually, if we come over to admin, I know a lot of people who are utilizing Matrix are also utilizing APIs in some way or another. And if you are, you're very familiar with how this area works. I don't want to take you here. Where I do want to take you is to the Help Center. And I'm going to search for API. Because this documentation, which if you're interested in utilizing APIs for integration purposes, or you already are utilizing APIs, you're very familiar with this page because this tells you how to do it. This tells you all of the variables that you can use. This has been updated. So we've had a lot of new variables that are available for you to use that have been updated on this documentation. So definitely come here. If you want a more general overview of exactly what those additions are, because there are a few, definitely come to product news. This is where I get all of the information for these product updates that I'm sharing with you. I'm just consolidating it all and giving it to you in a nice package. But coming to this product news and searching down, it's not that far down, it's just a little bit. Yeah, back August 30th, various API improvements. This is going to give you a list of all of those new API improvements, those new variables that we have for you to be able to use in between those external things, the applications that you're connecting with the APIs. Sorry. So we have some for deleting users. We have some for additional learner class details, including a variety of enroll ones, start time, unenrolled, deactivated, grades, and then some for job title support as well. So if you've been wanting to use these within your API to pass that information back and forth or just back, you can now come and explore these and see what types of things that you can do. So again, I got to here by coming to the help desk, product news, and then searching. It's in August 30th, various API improvements. You can have that list. So coming back out to our dashboard, the next update that we're going to talk about related to admins is actually a new account type. So back to our admin panel, we're going to head over to accounts. And if you've been using Matrix for a while, you're very familiar with these account types. If you've not been using Matrix for a while and you need a refresher, please reach out to somebody. But this content administrator account type is the newer account type. We got this not too long ago. And what it is it's kind of a marriage between the administrator, the regular administrator role, and the instructor role. So a lot of people asked for something similar to the content administrator because they want somebody to go into their platform and be responsible for the creation, development, management of course content, but they don't want that person to have all of the abilities of the administrator, because administrators can do a lot and they can influence a lot. So they don't want to give them that much power, but they also don't want them to be instructors, because even though instructors can do that stuff, they don't want them to touch grades. They don't want them to be able to communicate with students or do anything like that. So that's why we have content administrator. The content administrator is able to create and edit course templates and courses. They can create and edit resources in the resources catalog, so whether that's site-wide or within a course specifically. And they can also bulk upload resources via the import. So they can definitely come over to the admin area and then import in bulk those resources that they're going to be using to develop the courses, which is great. Okay, so our next one is, again, I like to start from the dashboard. Obviously, we can just come over here to admin. Since we're here, I'll stay here. Is in the automation. So this is actually a newer area. If you haven't been in the admin panel in a while, this might be a little bit of a surprise. So this is a newer area. And we have a couple of newer tabs here as well. So this automation area, automation is not a newer thing on Matrix or any of the Cypher Learning products. Automation has always been there. But this automation being in the admin panel denotes that it's site-wide automation. So that is a newer thing in some respects, especially in these respects up here. So what we're doing when we're configuring this automation, or when we're considering to configure this automation in our Matrix site, is we're saying, okay, all of the courses across this site should have the same completion actions, enrollment actions, unenrollment actions, re-enrollment actions, etc. Same with the modules, sections, all of these things, the automation should act exactly the same. The way that we were doing it before, and which is still available, is that you can go into any course specifically and set automation from there. And that's a great thing to do if you want each course to have different automation, right? If you're trying to individualize those courses based on automation, that's still available, and that's definitely an option. But this is for the case where everything across the site should act the same. So if you've used automation, you have the same automation actions. If you have never used automation, I'll show you what those automation actions can be. So upon completion of a course, this should happen. We're going to award a badge, we're going to award a certificate, we're going to invoke some integrations, invoke some memberships to groups, enrollment into courses, remove people from groups, or we're going to choose from any of the other automated actions that we can have, such as adding a tag, adding a to-do item, archiving the learner, which is really popular for completion actions for courses, especially, right? If we're trying to kind of maintain the number of users that are being active within our site after every course, let's archive the user. That could be a need, or let's deactivate the user. So locking them out of that course, not necessarily out of the site like archiving would do, but out of the course can be an option. Or maybe after the completion of a course, we're going to send a message saying thank you for taking this course, or a custom notification. There's really, I mean, the amount of creativity that you can have using the automation actions is really limitless. But just to keep in mind that these ones do count for all of these items across the site. So when we start to get into modules, sections, and assessments, things kind of change a little bit. So for modules, sections, and assessments, we have these added actions and these completion actions. And these are regarded differently because the added actions are not going to be targeted towards students. It's going to be targeted towards those people who are actually adding the assessment. So if that's a teacher, right, if you have a training development organization and all of your teachers are, you have a team of teachers who are responsible for creating their own content, what you can essentially do is every time a instructor adds a module into their course, or every time they add a section into that module, or every time they add an assessment into that section, you can have an action happen for that person who's doing that action. So this is a great way of gamifying kind of the course development of things, which we've seen people a little bit interested in more recently. So wanting to not just gamify for learners, but also gamify for teachers to get them a little bit more engaged in iterating or creating within their own courses. So that's definitely an option. Among these three, we also have completion actions. So while, like I mentioned previously, added actions are targeted towards teachers and people who are adding these items, completion actions are targeted towards the learners, the people who are completing these items. So when a assessment is completed, any assessment, it doesn't matter which one, we're going to make an automated rule, and this is going to happen consistently for everybody who completes any assignment across the site. So a lot of really interesting things going on with these ones. We also have automated actions for groups. So if we want to automate the added actions or removed actions, for resources, sharing a resource. So this is more targeted towards teachers as well, not really towards students, not as much. And then forums. This is a really interesting one that I've seen be implemented recently. So a case where there are a lot of forums happening in a lot of different courses, and there's actually a gamification of the forums, which forums is not an assessment type. It's just an area where people can go and discuss or ask questions. And so it's really interesting to play around with gamifying or adding little treats and little tidbits for people who are replying to other people. So maybe there's a forum where peer to peer, right? They can ask each other questions, help each other. And if somebody replies and is trying to help one of their peers, say in some type of a training situation, maybe we can give them a couple of points towards their gamification for helping out in that way. So it's pretty cool. Oops. So one of the potential, it's kind of a caveat, it's not really a caveat, one of the warnings that I'm going to give to you about this automation area as it exists here in the admin panel is that if you are setting actions. Let's take this completion action, for example. If you're setting this site-wide, so this is going to happen for all of the modules site-wide, anybody who completes a module is going to get 10 points in the site-wide game. And then you go into an individual course and you go into a module and you go into the completion area of an individual module and you set another rule individually for this course for 100 points, this one is going to be ignored in favor of the other one, in favor of the default one. So be very, very careful if you're interested in doing both individualized automation and site-wide automation, because the site-wide is always going to be the winner in cases like this. So coming back to our admin panel, we have talked about APIs, accounts, automations, and we're going in alphabetical order. The next place we're going to stop is with the course. No, actually, let's go to e-commerce because this one's a little bit quicker. So with the e-commerce, what we're able to do now is within this summary page, if you are utilizing e-commerce and you're also utilizing coupons, we scroll down to the coupons. I only have 2 enabled here, but I've seen cases where people have hundreds of coupons going on within their site, and I think it's really cool. What you're able to do now is really useful. You're actually able to come into the search area and search by name or by code. So for those cases where you have just this long list of all of these coupons that you're offering to your users and to your visitors, which I think is a great thing, going and enabling these or editing them through that long list can be a little bit time consuming depending on how many you have, but being able to search by name is definitely really, really useful, or by code if it's something that you have on hand. All right, so the next place that we're going to go to is back a little bit to the courses. So what we have available in the courses area is not super new. It's not what's here. It's what's actually inside of the courses, which I'll show you. And I put this in the admin area and not in the courses area because this is something that only an administrator account is able to do. Teachers won't be able to do this. Students certainly won't be able to do this, but only administrators will. So again, coming into the admin panel, going over to courses, and then heading over to fields. So as you can see, I already have a field input here, but this is where we're able to input custom fields into the settings of the courses that we make. So when we have courses, when we're creating courses, we have some default fields that the system already comes with: course code, section code, location, credits, organization, language, and time zone. So all of those come with the system, but we've definitely had instances where people wanted more of these or different kinds of these. And in the past, we weren't able to really give those, but now we can. So as you can see from that custom fields, I have the CEU input in there. We'll input another one just so I can show you a little bit more clearly how it works. So in the fields, we're going to go ahead and add another one, and I might say auditor assigned or something like that. Every course is going to have an auditor assigned to it. I don't know. So we'll input that field as the admin. And once that's finished, it's then going to be available as a custom field in each of the courses. So coming into this course, Blended Brown Bag series, we're going to come into the admin, go to basics. And a little bit towards the bottom, we'll have those custom fields. So CEUs is going to be left at 4, and then the auditor assigned, his name is going to be Mike for this course. So we can come into those courses and change these values for the custom fields. So now we don't have to play around with any terminology like we've had to do in the past. We can have those custom fields associated with the courses the way that we need to, and they are reportable. So if you needed to go to the reporting and run a report on the CEUs or run a report on the custom field for the auditor assigned, you'd be able to do that from the reporting area. Another update, and it's tied with this one, is that when a course is copied, so there are a lot of instances where people are not using template courses, but they're just copying a course from term to term or quarter to quarter. If we are copying a course, whether it's a course or a course template, those custom fields are going to be here for you to edit. So if this new course that you're copying over is 6 CEUs or 8 CEUs, and then Natalia is the auditor, you can make those changes while you're making that copy and then submit. So this new copy is going to have everything that the blended brown bag series had, except for those custom fields are going to be updated. Okay, so when it comes to child courses though, so let me go back to brown bag series. When it comes to child courses, and instead of making a copy, which you'll be able to edit those custom fields, when you make a child course, so let's pretend this brown bag series is a template. When you're making a child course, you're not going to be able to customize those options, those custom options, but you will. Oh, this one's taking a long time. All right, you will be able to go into that section. Once my internet stops going against me, you will be able to go into that brown bag child course, and then within the basics of this individual course, you'll be able to go in and edit any of these things that you need to. Okay, so back to the updates. So that's one of the updates. Coming away from courses, we're actually going to go over to this LTI. And LTI in Matrix is a popularly used feature. We do get a lot of people. LTI is learning tool interoperability. And if you're using LTI, you know, you know what it means. But if you're not, it's basically taking an external thing and embedding it into the Matrix platform so it can be used in the Matrix platform. So let's say in training, for some reason, there's a need to embed the Wikipedia website into Matrix so that people can use it, or some other tool that's like publishers or something, that's possible. But the update is that you can actually do it reverse now, which is really, really interesting for a certain specific case of user. Before we head into here, I just want to tell you that LTI can be found in the App Center. So if you come here and you search LTI, you'll be able to install it from here. Just like with most of our other apps, you can search the help desk and you'll be able to see all of the information associated with LTIs, especially down towards the bottom, where it says exporting tools. This is the update that we're going to be talking about here. Exporting tools, coming to admin LTI. This is the ability to not just bring in assessments to embed into the Matrix site so that your users can use those as embedded assessments, but to also be a provider. So this is really, really integral and really, really kind of game changing for those of you who sell courses from Matrix. So if you are selling your paths or your courses to enterprise accounts or to other individuals, this could be really, really interesting to look more into because it allows you to take the course that you have established on Matrix in your website and to export it and embed it into an external LMS. So any type of LMS that's not Cypher related, you're able to actually take your Matrix course and put it in there as a course that people can take. So this is specifically if I were selling my courses, and I had a prospect that didn't necessarily want to, give me a list of users that I could put into my matrix site and then have their employees take courses on my site, because they already have their own LMS, for example. If their own LMS is LTI compliant, we now have the option where they don't have to come into our matrix platform. We can kind of bring the matrix platform to them and embed it into their LTI compliant site if it is LTI compliant. Some of the caveats here are that currently the LTI access is limited to users that already have an LMS account, and we don't automatically create an account for new users. So what this means is if you're interested in that opportunity to embed your courses into external LMSs, the people who are taking the courses into those LMSs still have to have accounts with Matrix. So they still have to have accounts with your Matrix site, but they don't have to ever log in to Matrix, right? They don't need your Matrix URL. They don't need any information. They don't even have to ever really see Matrix outside of what is embedded into their company or organizational LMS, which is good. It's useful. But we do need, I think it's at least first name, last name, and email of the users who are intended to use the embedded Matrix course in the external LMS, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to track anything like completion or grades. We wouldn't be able to retain any of that information. So it's not going to be as useful to have it embedded into an external site. But that's definitely something that we can, talk about, we can work on you with. If you have any questions, definitely reach out to your ACE representative if you have one, and we can get any questions squared away. So coming back to this, the way that it would work is that you would tell the system how you want this to work. So enable access to courses via LTI. We do want that checked. Optionally, automatically enroll users into courses at LTI launch. That's another optional thing. With this first one enabled, what that does is coming into the course that you want to kind of export out and coming to admin of the course and going to more. Towards the bottom you have, or at the bottom, you have this little area for LTI. This consumer key, this consumer secret and this launch URL they're basically the only things that you're going to need to make this work, but the instructions on how to input them are going to be different for every external LMS. So if a competitor has a specific way that you need to enter these things in, they will usually tell you. They'll have instructions on what you need and where you need to put it. But these are the main things that you're going to need if you're interested in making that LTI connection. So very cool. A lot of really, really interesting possibilities as far as selling our courses to other people. Definitely something to look into if it seems interesting to you. All right. So still on the topic of admins, what's new for admins? What are we able to do? What's updated for us? Coming to the main menu, heading over to the admin panel, we're going to go from LTIs down to policies. So there's one or two things here. When we first click into policies, we're going to see the general tab, and right away, policies isn't usually something that people tend to come back and forth to. Once you've set your policies, you kind of leave them alone for a while. So if you haven't been here for a while, this is the main thing that's changed. Excuse me. And this is two-factor authentication. So we've had a lot of people asking for an added layer of security on top of either the single sign-on that they're using to get into the platform or the username and password that they're using to get into the platform. So this is our solution, the two-factor authentication. It works the same, similarly to a lot of other two-factor authentications. We have the enforce for option, so you can choose the account types that you want to enforce the two-factor authentication for. So it doesn't have to be this thing for all of the account types for everybody universally. You can pick and choose who you want this to be used for. And in the instructions that we've released for this, we have noted that it would be a good idea to gradually introduce this because it can be a bit of a learning curve, two-factor authentication for some audiences, and to definitely start with the administrators first, just so you and other administrators can get a feel of what it is like to have a two-factor authentication and the things that you'll have to do, and then gradually introducing it to instructors and learners and other account types. That's definitely our recommendation. Of course, you're going to do whatever needs to be done. But then we have these enforce after dates. So let's say there's a new administrator that is input into the system. After 7 days, the enforcement is going to happen. So they're going to be sent an email from the system. So from this area over here, and that email is going to ask them to enable two-factor authentication. And it's going to be made really easy because it's going to contain a link that the user needs to press and navigate to, and it will give them all of the directions that they need to follow in order to set up that two-factor authentication. If the new administrator or the new person has ignored that email, or you think that they might somehow miss it, we have a remind every category here. So you can say after the 7 days, once that email is sent out, once two-factor authentication is being enforced, every 2 days, I want you to send another one if that person has not enabled. If they have enabled, it's not going to remind them. And then we also have the expire on device. So this can be set in terms of months, and it can go all the way up to 12. We'll say that after 1 month, the two-factor authentication is going to need to be reset by each person. They're going to need to come in and insert that password again after a month. So again, this is really, really great if you're worried about security, or if you have any regulations that require the need for two-factor authentication, like I know some institutions do. Here you can find a list of available authenticators. All of these here, I do believe, are free, and we have the same list for iPhone as we do for Android, so these work across the board. I would look into all of them and see which ones are going to be the best for your audience. I know some audiences do well with Duo Mobile. I think in the product update, Cypher Learning uses Google, but for everyone that might not be, the thing to use. So definitely clicking on each of these, it's going to take you to the page where that app exists. So this is the Google Play Store for Duo Mobile, and you can just do a little bit of research of what's going to be the best one for you and your audience. And then once that is downloaded, so again, you can copy and paste this link. So it would be a good idea to copy and paste this link and send it into an email to all of the administrators who need to download it, or to all of the instructors who need to download it, just so nobody gets lost and it's easier to follow. Once that has been downloaded on a mobile device, when people open it, it's going to give them a code, and that code is going to change every minute or two. It's going to change quite frequently. So what's going to happen is, with the two-factor authentication, along with the username and password, in order to get into the site, people are going to also need to have that code in order to access the site. Thus, the double layer of security, which is always a great thing. Well, sometimes, most of the time, it's a great thing to have. And so one of the questions that I thought was a really good question in the product update forum was, somebody asked if there was going to be a limit on how many times somebody could get that code wrong before there's an account lock? And that's a really good question, because you see it often with other like social media accounts or other places where you have accounts on the internet. If you get your password wrong 3 times, then you're locked out for 24 hours, or you have to contact the bank, or you have to do something. And the answer to that question for this is no, it's not going to lock you out, and you don't have to worry about anybody being locked out, simply because this is different from a password. So the code on the authenticator is going to change every 1 to 5 minutes, depending on the authenticator. And so no one's ever going to be able to guess what that code is. They'll never be able to somehow, off the top of their minds, think of what that code could be in order to log in as you. So it's much different from a password. But I thought that was a great question to bring up. Okay, so that I think is all for the two-factor authentication. Obviously, if any of that was confusing to you, I apologize, but we do have the help desk available, and you can always email as well, your EdTech or ACE representative. Coming down to the admin panel again. So we're going to move from policies over to portal. And in this portal, we're going to go over to user view. And then we're going to scroll down to this new update, dark mode. So by default, every site comes with dark mode toggling enabled. So every user, whether they're an instructor or a mentor or a learner, will be able to toggle between dark mode and light mode. Some people have asked to not have that. And if you don't want that, if you're one of those people, you can come to this area. Again, we're in admin, portal, user view, and you can disable that from here. So where'd it go? Once that's disabled, then they're not going to have the ability in this little caret up here next to the profile to toggle between light and dark mode. So a little bit of a smaller update, but still important and still definitely needed for some people. The next update, again, is going to seem like it doesn't belong in this category, but it's here in the admin category, as we're talking about admin updates, because it's something only an admin is going to be able to do. And this actually is with the groups, so the site-wide groups. So from the main menu, if you're utilizing groups, you'll be able to see groups here on the main menu. I'm just going to click into a random one, creative design team. And the update here is with automatic group membership. So anytime you make a group, you'll be able to come to the admin and see the membership area. And in the past, this is where you're able to set the maximum number of members for the group, and then maybe some add actions or removed actions. But the update is actually here in the automatic membership. So the automatic membership allows you to set a filter that the system is going to look for as it goes through the list of all of the users. And it's going to automatically push people into this group based on that filter. So right now I have a filter set for account type. Everybody who is within the system, we'll actually talk about that in a second. Everybody who has an account type of mentor within the business is being pushed into this group automatically. And the system is going to do that every 5 minutes. So every 5 minutes, it's going to go again through that list of people within the business, and it's going to target anybody who's a mentor who hasn't already been pushed into this group and automatically push them in. We do have filters for a lot of different things. So this mentor account type was just an example, but we have filters for city, for country, for basically anything you can need, for organization, for state. So if you wanted to create some type of networking group where only people from Arizona can be in this group and they can network together, you can do that without having to go through the list of users and find everybody who's from Arizona manually and push them in. So it's a really useful feature. One of the things to remember about this one is that the scope matters. So when you're creating a group, you're always going to have that question of the scope of the group. The scope, in order for automatic membership to work, the scope cannot be private. It has to either be organization or business. And the difference between these two is that business, if you're utilizing organizations, you have your organization, the default organization, and maybe a couple or 100 other organizations under that. Business is going to encompass you and all of those other organizations. So if you needed all of the mentors from every child organization that exists in your site to be in this group, then you would go business. If you just wanted to count that one organization, not all of the other ones that exist as well, but just the organization that this group is being made in, then you would go organization. But private, this isn't going to work for automatic membership. So we'll keep this as business. And then once we have that established, the system knows where to go to grab those people from. And once it's grabbed those people, we also have the added actions. So by default, it's going to send them this group member added message. Of course, you can change that. If you wanted it to send a message, you can customize the message so that it says something that's more relevant to you and your institution. If you wanted to add another action or replace, you have this set of actions that you can choose from as well. So notifications is included in here too. And then also removed actions. So every 5 minutes, as I mentioned, the system's going to go through the list of users, either within the business or the organization, and it's going to push people in who meet that filter. But it's also going to go through the list of members in the group, and it's going to remove people who no longer meet the criteria of the filter as well. So if their account type suddenly changes to monitor and they're no longer a mentor, then the system's going to know that and it's going to kick them out the next time it iterates over. So super helpful, really, really helpful actually, because before all of this had to be done manually, which can be really, really, really time consuming. Even if we are doing bulk uploads, it can still be really time consuming. This is just another example of how we're pushing the system a little bit more to work for you and to free up your time in terms of tasks. So that is the automatic membership for groups. We're getting towards the end of the admin, and then we have a couple more things to talk about, but we are about halfway through. Another admin related or admin specific function that is an update. So if we come to our admin main menu, and we head over to users and we go over to learners. What we're able to do is target a specific person within this list of learners. And from their profile, we're able to go into their enrolled and we're able to deactivate them from certain courses. So I touched on this a little bit earlier, but deactivation and archiving, for those of you who don't know what archiving, are different. So archiving is when this person, Carrie, is not coming back. She's left the organization. She's not coming back into the system. So we don't want her to be able to log in anymore, but we need to retain her data for reporting purposes or for some other purposes. We want to keep her data there. Deactivating is course specific. So we're taking her out of that course. We're not letting her back into that course, but she still has access to the platform and she can go into her other courses and do what she needs to do on the platform. So we can deactivate her from her profile. We can also reactivate her from her profile. We can also do these things by going into the specific courses and doing it from there. That's also an option that still exists. So if we went into learners, we can find Carrie and we can deactivate her from here. But this is here. So if you need to kind of bulk deactivate her from a couple of different courses, you're not going to want to have to search for all of the courses that Carrie is in and then go to the learners and then deactivate or reactivate. You can just do it all from here. So it's a time saver for sure. All right. And then the last one for this category, for the admin category, is kind of my favorite one. So coming over to the main menu and then going down to organizations. And I know a lot of people are actually going to be really excited about this one, and I'm excited about it too, is that it just became exponentially easier to edit organizations. So as you'll see immediately coming to this page, we have this new edit column, which is beautiful. Before, when we wanted to change anything about an organization, we had to click into that organization. We had to go over to the admin menu. We had to click into the basics or wherever we needed to make that change. And then we had to make that change. Now we could still do that, but it's not necessary. What we can do is we can go into this pencil icon next to the name and we can change the name. We can add or edit the description. We can tag whether it's an internal or not organization, and we can change the position. So this was huge. I know from my experience in training, this was a huge, huge, huge need for a lot of people, especially those with many, many organizations. Now you can choose to push an organization from to be at the very start of the list, to be at the very end of the list, after a specific organization, before a specific organization, or as the first or last child of an organization. So this organization 1.2, if I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of organizations, and I need it to go way down the list, I no longer have to use these little up and down arrows. I could if I wanted to, but I don't have to. I can just simply come in here and say organization 2.1 needs to be the first child of organization 3. So I need it to move there, and then it's going to automatically do it, which is beautiful. It's great. All right. So that makes up the changes and updates for the admin account type. We're going to very quickly go through some of the course ones. The course, so let me come back to my dashboard. So from here, we're going to go over to courses. So these are still going to be available to some of the admins, but they're also going to be available to instructors and anybody who is using and developing courses. So inside of this classroom management course, inside of the admin, we're going to go into the enrollment. And what's new here is the difference between max active learners and max seats. So active learners is the total number of active learners, so people who are actually taking the course, that are going to be allowed to be in a course at one specific time. Max seats is kind of like a snapshot. It's a fixed number of the total people who are enabled to be in the course, period. So whether they're an active learner or they're a completed learner or they're a transferred learner, so somebody that used to be there. And this is used a lot for, again, matrix accounts who are selling their courses or who are bringing in enterprise accounts with their own employees or their own training people. So setting the max number of seats means if an enterprise account is buying 20 seats for 20 of their employees, it doesn't matter if 10 of those people are completed with the course, it's 20, it's staying 20. Whereas if it's 20 active learners, then there could be some people in there who already took the course and are completed, but we can still have 20 people in there because the cap for active is 20. So it's a huge difference between these, and it can sometimes be a little bit confusing. So if you have questions, absolutely ask. Let me see. Questions. Oh, there are some questions here that I should probably answer. So Jeff says, when would you use a child course versus copying a course? That's a great question. And since we're here, and that's actually getting to where I'm going next, I'll definitely answer that one. So the difference between copying a course and a child course is that when you have a child course, let me go to the parent of this one. So when you have these child courses, these child sections, you're actually going to be able to sync what's happening here in the template to the child courses. So let's say in this template, we have every piece of content, everything that needs to be laid out for this course. And we want to push this to another organization, or we want to push this to, an enterprise account, just so they can have their separate space. We can make that copy of the course, and we can sync any changes that are happening between this master copy of the course and the courses that are active and being used by different organizations or different use cases. That's the difference. And that actually goes into what I was going to talk about next, is that one thing that we weren't able to sync between those child courses is that when we have a page, we can have resources associated with that page. And when you create a child course, or that syncable copy of the course, the content page would sync. So it would sync all the way down, but the resources would stay in the template. So now the resources are going to follow the content. So we don't have to go in and manually upload those content pieces. With the copy, again, the difference is that it's not syncable. So if we ever changed anything in the main copy, we're not going to have those changes show up. There's no chance of them showing up in the copy, which is okay for some people. Does this new LTI export work with? Okay, that's a great question. So does the new LTI export work with new Zenler or Kajabi? That totally depends on those external sites. So we've become LTI compliant so that we can bring in tools that people need to use. Those tools would have to be LTI compliant to allow you or other people to bring in Matrix as a thing. So as long as they're LTI compliant, then the answer would be yes, it would work. If they're not LTI compliant on their own, then we would have no way to create that connection. That's a great question. Okay, I know we're running out of time. I only have a few more things to talk about within the courses. So a couple of new additions to the courses. We also have a new assessments pop-up area. So coming out to the main landing page of the course, Classroom Management for Digital Courses, we have this area here for assessments. Now, when you are adding in assessments, a lot of people will do it from here. You can also do it from inside of the module. But what we have here is this new pop-up. When you're adding an assessment and you're thinking about that learning design, how you're going to have people participate in some of these assessments, whether it's going to be individual or group, we now have our assessments, instead of in this long list, we have them categorized as whether it's an individual assessment or a group assessment. So then you have a little bit more clarity on what these assessments will be able to do for you in terms of your learning design, and which ones you can use to kind of achieve more social or more independent assessment. So along with that, we also have a simplifies quiz interface. So I'm just going to very quickly make a quiz here. Once that's done, it's going to bring you to this page. And when you go to add your questions, we have these new inline help pieces that will help you to add the questions. And we also have a newer interface in the sense that singular questions and questions from question banks are going to be put together on a single page. So if I have this quiz and I'm just going to use library, I want to use this question bank. I can add in that question bank. And I'll go back to view question bank. Oh, no, wrong place. I'll go back to the assessment. Questions. Yeah. Uh-oh, I think I did something wrong. Okay, questions. We added a question bank. Yes, that's true. Let's add it again. Here we go. Okay, so it's going to come to this page. So up here, we have it represented that we are using question banks, and there are 2 associated here, but we also have the option to input singular questions, or we should. This worked for me earlier. Let me go to these. Okay, so the fix is going to be, or not the fix, the update is going to be, we have the ability to have singular questions represented here. So I can add questions singularly, but I can also add question banks at the same time on the same interface. So let's do this. Yep, here we go. So now we can control both the question banks and the singular questions at the same time. Another update is going to be with this answer key. So with the questions that we have available that are singular, we'll be able to generate and print an answer key associated with all of the questions. And this just puts everything together. So it's in a more consolidated space so that things are working a little bit better. And then coming over to, let's see, what time is it? Yes, we have 2 more things to talk about. Coming over to score rules, because I think this one's really important. A lot of people across Matrix utilize the score rules. And the score rules is just the ability to say within a assignment, whether it's a quiz or an essay or whatever, within an assignment, if somebody scores, anybody who takes this assignment, if they score, we're going to say less than or equal to 100 and greater than 90. So we're creating a range here. We're saying if somebody who takes this piece of this assessment meets this criteria, they're within this range of less than 100, greater than 90, then we want this action to happen. Maybe we're going to give them an award or certificate. We're going to give them 10 points. Let's say that. This is very often used across Matrix and also across our other products. It's a very, very cool way to personalize. And that reminds me, if you do want to start using score rules and you're not already using score rules, you can go to the admin area to App Center and search for personalization, and that will give you access to the score rules. But anyways, back to the update. Having this range, when you are configuring an assessment, you have the opportunity to set the maximum number of attempts for a specific assessment. If it's 1 and a user scores between 90 and 100%, they're going to get that 10 points. And it's not going to be an issue. Where the issue was happening is when we have more than 1 attempt. So on the second attempt, if they score again between that range of 90 and 100 or whatever range you're using, in the past, they would get a separate 10 points. So they would essentially get 20 points for meeting the same range, which is not ideal. It's not what we want to happen. It's not what teachers or trainers want to happen. So what we've done is we've improved the score rules for the assessment so that whenever somebody takes a second attempt of an assignment, it's gonna delete whatever happened with the first attempt and only trigger what happens for the second attempt. So in this case, it's gonna take away those first 10 points that are associated with the first attempt, but then give them back 10 points associated with the second attempt because they fell again within that range. So that is another and the last update for classes. So the last place that I'm going to take you, and this will be really quick. I know we're already over time and I apologize. The last place I'm going to take you is to the admin App Center. So this is the app. We're finishing up here and over to skills development. So skills development, as you can see, is a request access. So not only is this a major new feature that we've released this year, but it's our first add-on feature, but it's a really, really cool feature. And I'm not going to go super in depth with it today, but I am going to introduce you to it. So I'm going to do that over here. What it looks like is this goals widget here on the dashboard, and its ability to take that mastery information, so the skills and the competencies that are being built up in your system within your training programs, can be used to facilitate different recommendations and also different types of goals. So here we have competencies and jobs. So this is for any type of use case where you are giving people the freedom to choose what kind of training they want, to choose what kind of skills that they want to grow in. Let's say, for example, I want to learn all of the skills associated with design basics for 2022, or I want to become a marketing specialist. I can add that into my active goals, and then the items, the skills that are mapped with being a marketing specialist or becoming a marketing specialist are going to be mapped across the system to different assignments, to different courses, to different resources. And then those resources, because they are mapped to the skills that are associated with this job, are going to be recommended to me as a user. So it's kind of going out of the hands of instructors to recommend what people might be interested in or what people might need. Now the system is helping to recommend what people might be interested based on the things that they are classifying as goals. So again, I'm not going to get too far into it because this could be a whole nother hour of talking about what this just the whole thing that goes into this. It's really, really robust feature. And it's also really cool. There have been some people who are using it really successfully, but what I will show you is over on our website, so cipherlearning.com. If you come to resources, webinars, and you scroll down just a little bit, let's wait for it to get there. You scroll down just a little bit to this webinar by our CEO, Graham Glass. This product demo, how to design effective skills development strategies using an LMS. Because he's such a perfect person to learn this from, because this skills development is his brainchild. He's the CEO. This is his baby. This entire webinar is going to tell you everything about the ins and outs about how this skills development feature can be used, why it's even a thing, how it corresponds with the emerging trends that we're seeing in training, and why we've added it onto the platform. We didn't put it here for no reason. It's definitely something that people have expressed need for, and we do think is going to be super successful. So definitely come and see what he has to say. There's also, as it says, a product demo so they can show you how to use it. And then again, because it is an add-on, it's something that you would have to contact your salesperson for, but they'll be happy to answer any questions about that as well. So, okay. Thank you. Let me come back to here because we are finished. I don't see any other questions in the Q&A. I think I answered all of Jeff's questions. And I don't see any in the chat. If you have any questions and you'd like to stay back, I'll be here for another 1 or 2 minutes if you have any questions. But other than that, thank you so much for joining. We do also have a new Twitter handle associated with Matrix LMS. So if you wanted to go to Twitter and tweet us at Matrix LMS about today's webinars, any thoughts, inspirations that you might have, even questions that you might have. And you can use the hashtag Matrix Talk to facilitate and be part of the conversation. So thank you everyone for coming, and we will see you again soon.